Hey guys, what's up? I got something to show you. It's a new Specialized Roubaix SL8. I'm getting ready to test ride it. So this was hooked up to me, my good buddy Gabe over at the Bike Surgeon. I was there recording the podcast and he said, hey, you want to take and do a review of this bike for us? And I'm like, for real? Yeah, an opportunity to work for free? Sweet. No, but I've been wanting to ride. This is by far the most expensive bike and the finest bike I will have ever ridden. I should hate it. There's a lot on here that I don't like. Let's go over it. Through axles on road bikes, I'm not really a fan. Disc brakes on road bikes, I'm not really a fan. Electric shifting on road bikes, I'm not really a fan. One by on road bikes, I'm not really a fan. Gigantic tires on road bikes, maybe a fan. Proprietary weird seat post on road bikes, not really a fan. Weird built-in suspension on road bikes, maybe a fan, we'll find out. So I only had 2 days to test this bike, and both days I had to work. I really wish I had taken this on a long, proper ride to get a really good review, because this Roubaix, I mean, it's an endurance road bike, so it makes sense you should probably test it on an endurance road ride. But first, before I even test it, I have to figure out how to shift it. I had no idea how to shift this bike. Like, I knew it was SRAM Apex, and my last experience with SRAM was double tap, where you pressed it once, you know, to shift down, and double tapped it to shift up, pressed it, I don't know, something like that. I had no idea. Like, I had no idea how to shift the bike. Like, I hit the button, it went into its highest gear, I could barely pedal it. And I was like, well, do you double tap it? Do you hold it in? It took me a long time to realize that the shifting up was on the left shifter, which I didn't expect because it's a one by. So I didn't expect shifting on the left. That's kind of funny. Makes a lot of sense though, right? Shift up, left shift down. Okay, so let's make it clear what we are actually reviewing here. This is the Specialized Roubaix SL8 Sport Apex Edition. On the website, the MSRP for this bike is a staggering $4,000. It weighs, according to the website, 19 pounds and 11 ounces, but on my scale, it actually came out to 20 pounds, about 20 and a half pounds. And that is without a single thing added to the bike. That is stock, not even a bottle cage. I guess that includes the weight of my pedals. So yeah, I guess you got to throw that on there. So let's start off the review with the bike's most standout feature, which in my opinion is definitely the Future Shock. This is Future Shock 3.1. Now this is their, I think, lower end version of the Future Shock. It's not adjustable like it is on the higher end frames where you have lockout or different levels of adjustability. It is just there. You cannot change it. You can't lock it out. I started off believing that this was probably, and this is my first time riding a road bike with any kind of like built-in suspension. I've never rode a Domain or anything like that. And I have had pretty good experience riding mountain bikes with active suspension stems. That was a thing back in the 90s. And in fact, I have a Gervin Flex stem, and I actually really like that. And I found this to be actually better than those. So let's just say that going into this, I really didn't think I would care much for this stem. I kind of believed it probably is more of a gimmick. You know, I'm a tech curmudgeon for the most part about bikes, and this is just something I thought, you know, the wannabe racer in me says this is a gimmick. After riding it, I think I've already changed my mind about this Future Shock. So first thing I noticed is just how incredibly active. My first maybe couple miles on the bike, I was like, whoa, this is weird, but you quickly get used to it. And I would liken it to the feel of having very large volume, low pressure front tire. It feels like you're riding a tubeless mountain bike tire that's in that sweet spot of comfort and grip and everything. It is very active, as you can see from my slow motion cam here. It is constantly moving with, and this is kind of a rough section of oil and chip road with lots of imperfections, and there was a big bump, and you can see it just easily moves up and down. It's constantly moving. And you don't, after a while, you don't really notice it, but you got to think that's taking a ton of shock off of your back, off your hands, off your shoulders, off your arms, and making the bike much more controllable at high speeds. I'm sure of it. So what about sprinting? I don't have any video of me sprinting, but I can tell you that I got used to it really quick. Probably about the third time I stood up and sprinted on that, it didn't bother me at all. Again, it just feels like you kind of have a low tire. I can tell you, let's talk about tires. This bike has big tires. It comes with 30, they measured 33. I'm not sure what size Specialized thinks they are, but they measured on calipers 33. And I have this corner that I have done over and over and over again on a practice crit course. It's covered with like loose grit. You come off of like a side road onto a hard concrete road, and there's a lot of little grit and gravel pieces there. And every single time I do that turn, I feel on my normal bike, my 25s, kind of lose traction a little bit if I'm going at any kind of speed. And I went as hard as I could around that corner on this Roubaix, and I did not feel that at all. In fact, I could turn pretty tight and not in that loose stuff, and those tires definitely were very, very confidence inspiring. I gotta say, riding bigger tires just feels good. It feels slow though, and we'll talk about speed in a minute, but I think the tires on this bike are probably the tire width and the tire choices you have are what's going to make this bike really, really awesome. Imagine if you told somebody in 1999 that we would be buying road bikes with 32 millimeter tires, hydraulic brakes, suspension built into the fork, built into the steer tube, one by drivetrain with one front chainring and a 44-11 cassette on a road bike with electronic shifting. I think they would have thought you were nuts, especially when you told them this bike was $4,000 and weighs 20.6 pounds naked. That's nuts. Now, if you were in 1999, you would think, why would somebody spend that much for such a heavy bike? I think over the time we've figured out that weight, while it was everything in those years, or it seemed like it was everything, it's not so important now. There's a lot more to be said. These tires feel slow when you ride them. They don't feel fast. I don't think the bike's slow at all. A bike feels fast because it's harsh and because it skits around and you feel every little bump, so you think you're going faster. This bike smooths everything out. You probably are going faster and you don't even feel like it. Okay, let's talk about things that maybe didn't impress me that much. Now, first off, through axle wheels, I'm not really a fan of them. I don't really feel any performance benefit, and I like to take my front wheel off to put my bike in my car, and that's annoying that I'm going to have a 6 mil and unscrew a bolt every single time I want to do that. That right there would really turn me off of, but I would adapt to that. I just don't really see, I know there's a safety benefit for discs, and so it's just that's what we're going to have to get used to, I guess. Okay, electric shifting, yeah, it's great, but I wasn't nearly as impressed as I thought I was going to be. This was my first time riding electric shifting, and yeah, it's awesome just to tap that button, and the bike shifted flawlessly up and down the cassette. So that's great, but I just don't see how it's worth the money, because to me it's not that much better. And I don't want to have to worry about charging another thing. I'm already charging my Garmin and charging my phone, and I just don't want to worry about, and I know you only have to charge them every now and again, but still, it's not something I really want to worry about. Okay, how about one-by drivetrains? Not on the road, not for me. I think that's a terrible idea for a road bike right now. There's a couple of reasons. First off, it still has big jumps, and this cassette's a great cassette. 44, it's got great range. It's not a range problem. The range is awesome. It's the jumps, and it's also the fact that at the extreme ends of that cassette, that chain is at quite a bit of angle. I still kind of had some noise when I was in my first lowest and highest gear in the cassette, some clicky noises, and I have that on my mountain bike too. It's just you don't use those gears very much, so not a big deal, but I just don't think one by's there. I don't think the jumps on the cassette from some of those, especially on the lower end, just not so great. I would much rather have my 2x. I don't really think I would want 12 speed either. I think 12 is getting too finicky with the jumps in the cassette, but I'm a curmudgeon. Don't tell Gabe, but I just bombed down a gravel trail to get to this little bridge, and it felt like I was on my gravel bike. Like, pretty much just like a gravel bike. Okay, this is going to be the most hot take part of my review that Specialized probably wouldn't really want me to say, but to me, this bike kind of makes a lot of bike categories irrelevant. So it's a road bike. I mean, it's a very capable road bike. It probably wouldn't be my choice to race a crit, but other than that, it's a great road bike. It's a great gravel bike. It has room for 38s easily. The 33s that come in here would probably be fine for most gravel rides. I'm not saying every, but most gravel rides, especially if you're not at the pointy end going really, really fast and can't actually like change, dodge rocks and stuff. But if I was going to be racing this, say in the Dirty South, I would put 38s like the Trigger Pros that I raced this year and got my fastest time ever and didn't have any flat problems. The bike, it could be a touring bike. It could be a gravel adventure bike. It could be a race bike. It's pretty much just a do whatever you need a bike to do bike. I mean, you can't mountain bike on it, and I probably wouldn't want to crit race on it, mainly just because I wouldn't want to crash it. It's too nice to crash. But this thing, to me, it just makes bike categories irrelevant. Like, you don't need a bunch of different bikes if you had this one bike. Okay, let's talk about price really quick. $4,000. It seems like a lot to me, but my mind is stuck in $97. $2,000 and 97 is about $4,000 now, and that would have got you a perfectly capable 9-speed Ultegra carbon bike back then. It wouldn't be nearly as capable. I wouldn't want to use that on gravel. Like, this bike can do anything, and that bike would have definitely been a road-only bike. Back then, it would have probably had 23s, and you would have had a lot more flats, and you would have struggled climbing up a lot more of the hills without the gear range. So I'm going to tell you a little secret. You can get this bike for $2,800 equipped with 10-speed Tiagra right now. It's got a little bit lower end wheels. It doesn't have the DT Swiss wheels, and that's a 10-speed, but that's a double, so the range is going to be about the same, and I'd rather have a double. Plus, 10-speed chains and cassettes, they're going to last longer, especially on gravel. If you ride a lot of gravel, you're going to wear that stuff out. So it's the exact same frame. That's the one I would buy. $1,200 cheaper, and I would rather probably have that anyway. So heck, but anyway, thanks to Bike Surgeon for letting me do the ride. If you'd like to try one out, they're available to test ride there too for a small fee. And talk to Gabe, tell him I sent you. See you guys later.